Alrighty guys, so this is going to be a very different video. For one, I'm drinking some of my coffee right now because it's late. Right, so this is going to be a very different demo. Well, getting ahead of myself here. This is going to be a very different video to what you are used to seeing from the sound guy as a whole. Reason being is I'm going to show you guys some behind the scenes footage and planning on setting up a club, right? This is something you don't necessarily get to see. We are quoting a venue, a big shout out to them, being the beach in Santon, Rivonia. It is an absolutely awesome venue, right? They have recently made some changes to the venue. I believe there's been some change of ownership, and the guys want to improve their sound. Now their sound is not bad. In fact, they have got a beautiful system, which I think was installed by Surge Sound. They are the EAW dealer, and it is in fact a really cool EAW system that is in right now. The system is kind of old, some of it has been serviced, some drivers have broken, the original drivers aren't around anymore, so there's been some substitutions, and what the venue has found is in fact they need more, right? It's time to change. So we were called out, we went through there last week to go and have a look at the venue, and we opened the discussion to say, right guys, let's talk, let's walk, let's have a look and have a feel. Now, one of the things that we need to do when quoting any venue is take some real life measurements, in which case we didn't need to do that because the venue is organized and they have the building plans, and most venues should have these plans, right? It's really important and kind of compulsory for any building to have some building plans. At least to the legal requirements, right? So they have given us the plans, and a big shout out to the venue for actually allowing us to share some of this behind the scenes process as to how we go about, speccing systems, or at least how I do it. I don't know about the rest of the guys. So there's going to be some similarities to what you might experience as a venue if you're looking to put sound into your venue. A lot of the times, people who give advice don't necessarily give the best advice. But we're going to show you the right way of going about doing things. And some of the rules that apply to what a venue requires, you are going to kind of need the same information if you're renting sound. How much sound do you need? How many people are going into the venue? How loud can you get? What is the legal limit you have to face? All of these things we're going to indirectly answer. So from a venue perspective, if you're looking to install sound, we would use the same process whether we're installing sound into a venue, right? Or we are quoting for sound, or we renting sound to you as a venue. Is what do we need to put in order to give you the best experience, right? So firstly, the venue is really cool. And when I mean cool, I mean like really cool. Okay, it is, as the name suggests, it has this really cool beach vibe. It is extremely welcoming. One of the things that we noticed, the instant you step through these doors, is it's a very inviting venue. There is beach sand, there is decking, there's a bar on the left hand side, there's a bar on the right hand side. We can actually see this, excuse me, I've got the hiccups. We can see this as one space. We can also kind of see this as two spaces. This is undercover. This is all open space. There is some seating on the back end of the venue and the side over here. Same thing applies for this little area. There's a little corner hooky, or nook or cranny, whatever you want to call it. But there is some seating going throughout the venue. So you can see this is one big space. But in the same way, we can see it as two spaces, which interleads into another awesome little space over here. So the venue itself is very inviting. Even if I was doing corporate venues or a corporate function, and I was looking for something different, which is more relaxed, for a staff gathering, for a corporate event, regardless of what it is, the venue actually lends itself to a little bit of everything. So it's a really nice space. They've got this raised platform over here. There's a really large LED display. So if you guys are getting together and you want to watch rugby somewhere, it really is a cool space, right? To sit down with a couple of mates or whatever the reason is, it's a great space, very inviting. right? So that is the first thing that we're going to look at whenever we go into a venue, is what type of venue is it? And the beach definitely gives you a really nice, cool, relaxing, inviting vibe that instantaneously you can see having a function there, and at the same time, you know, dropping some bass and having a really fat party. This other area over here is kind of closed off. There is some glass that runs from this end of the wall straight down. So, you know, in a way we can see this as three different spaces. We can see this as a space, that is a space, and this open area is a space. Or we can look at this as one section, and we can look at this as one section. Because a lot of the times, you know, if you are a venue, you need to maximize things. So perhaps you could have a birthday party in this space and something else happening in this area at the same time. So you can kind of accommodate. There is another bar area over here. So there's a lot that the venue can do at any given instance, and this is something that we need to consider when we're looking at how to maximize the acoustic experience, right? Because, you know, when you look at brands, you think of iconography, you relate to the colors, the shape, and so forth. But there is a psychoacoustic perspective of any sound system going into any venue, right? Typically speaking, most guys will recommend something which is pre-built and ready-made. Those are good solutions for most places, but we have the ability to design from the ground up. In other words, from the box to the speaker pane to the driver, the grill, everything we can custom make, so we can really try and fit in a system into the venue regardless of what is going in there, right? So the EAW system is in here. This section still sounds relatively good, though things have changed around. The speakers are in a bit of an awkward space, but they still can be utilized, right? But if I was you guys, I would look to knock on a door and try and buy those EAWs. They're absolutely beautiful. Okay, so where do we start? Well, we start, generally speaking, with some form of dimension, right? So we need to come in and have a look, and we had a look, we got the sense of the potential atmosphere, right, and what the venue offers. We sit and chat to you guys to find out, you know, what happens, what type of music is played, what do you guys do, blah 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 blah, and we would invariably take some measurements and some pictures and so forth. You know, where we're going to hang things if we put a speaker over here, and where is the existing sound. Now the venue does have some fills going all the way through here. It was greatly done. They try to cover enough area to try and give everyone a little bit of sound. But with them needing to do a little bit more as they experienced, they're starting to fill up the venue, and they don't believe it is loud enough, so things have got to get louder regardless of. But knowing this information, right, is really critical. So we need to take this into consideration for the venue itself, right? So because we've got these plans, I've already pulled some measurements off of the actual venue itself, and I have some really important information that I can now work, right? So I'm going to pull a rough width dimension of about 18 meters. Now there is obviously a little bit of a section in a wall and so forth, so but 18 meters is what I'm going to work on, the width, right? And the overall length of the venue, I think, was what, 30, let's have a look here, 18 by 32, right? Okay, so this space I'm going to say is 18 meters roughly from here to here, and we have got a 18 meters from here to here. This would be the inside wall, and 32 meters from here going all the way down to the bottom end of the venue, right? We also then have the popo factor, right? This would be a road. Now, because of where the venue is situated, we kind of have to worry about the noise complaints, because not only is this a very popular business and industry area, but there is residential spots in and around half a block off. So noise levels is quite a serious thing. So we got to avoid the popo coming along and saying, hey, we've got noise complaints, blah, 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 blah. So we're going to start with some of these dimensions. Now we've pulled off some of these dimensions, I've written some stuff down, and I'm starting to look at things realistically speaking, right? So perspective A, I break things up into perspectives. What would the ultimate outcome be for the venue? How would I do things? You know, if it was my venue, I would obviously want really good sound, but I need a starting point. So perspective A, really, I've simplified the outer area as a single zone. even though in the back of my mind, I want to give the venue maximum control. In other words, they can turn off, they can turn up, they can turn down, every section of the venue itself, right, through all three sections. So if we look at these three sections, they can have different music playing over here, different music playing over here, and different music playing over here, should they wish. Or we can turn one side off, turn that system on, turn this system on, but at the same time, if we've got a really big event happening, you know, or two different dance floors, we can have everything run together, or we could have something happen in each of these spaces, right? So we want to give the venue flexibility, right? Very, very important. Okay, so knowing that we need to set some form of system into this venue, we got to start to ask the right questions. Now, if we are considering not laying up into trouble, we need to hit a SPL limit of somewhere between 55 to 60 dBs. 60 dBs might be pushing, 55 dBs, you know, closer to the legally accepted, right? Now, here is a secret between you and I. A lot of measurements are A-weighted measurements. Now, Lani, just between you and I, A-weighting actually does not consider the very bottom end of any subwoofer, right? Especially ones that can go very, very low. It starts to roll off. I'm not going to say where, but it starts to roll off on the low end spectrum. But there is the very bottom end that the mic actually does not take into consideration, bro. So, you know, if you're really after that juicy 30 hertz, a little bit lower, you know, you can sneak it into the system. But that's just between you and I. Never heard it from me. Okay. So we've got this legal limit that we have to work with, which is basically going to be from one point to another point. So looking at the way the venue is laid out currently right now, here is a DJ box. And we know that it might be a little bit easier to come from here. So here is the DJ booth. There is some subs over here. So typically speaking, for most places, you know, wherever your DJ box is, you've got some sound over the side and sound over the side, and you play into this space. The problem is we have to try and work out how loud we are going to be to the perimeter without getting into trouble. So we have a known distance and a known value of SPL. So in which case we're going to shoot for this target of 55 dB, right? So our space is 18 meters, right, from this wall to this wall over here, plus we have got the parking lot, which gives us another 41 meters, 42 meters approximately, okay, to work with. So we have a known SPL level, and we have, or should I say, a threshold, and we have distance. Now, the moment we have that, a known distance and a known SPL limit, we can back calculate, forward calculate, left and right calculate, however you want to calculate, but we can work out SPL. So 41 plus 18, okay, it's not 58 meters. I've just simplified it to 58 meters to try and write off some of the points as our distance, using 58 meters as our reference point. With our legal limit SPL target at 55 dBs, I've got to ask myself, how loud can our system be 1 meter from the speaker if our speaker is on the wall by our DJ booth? If we calculate it backwards, well, let's have a look at this, right? So from here to here, if we are measuring 55 dBs and we calculate that value back, how loud is our speaker? Well, 90 dBs, guys. That is crazy. Now, I know a lot of you guys are possibly going, what the hell are you on about? 90 dBs, Gareth, that is not loud at all, considering that speakers can go up to 120 decibels. And if you believe what brands tell you, your single 12 with its 1000 watt amplifier is going to break all SPL competition records with 100 and too many dBs, right? 90 dBs is actually so soft. If we consider the average pro speaker, right, the average pro speaker, professional PA speaker, has a 1 watt sensitivity of around 95 dBs. Isn't that crazy? One speaker up against this wall with 1 watt is already too loud at the street. Ain't that crazy? Now I know what you're thinking, Gareth. you are mad and what you are saying is not right. Unfortunately, this is the reality behind things. But stop, there is a bit of magic sauce that we're going to throw into this called the patron, right? The patron is basically a big meat shield, okay? So 90 dB is actually less than 1 watt on a pro speaker. If we're using a pro speaker, that is basically 1/3 of a watt to bring us back down to around 90 dBs. So in fact, this sounds crazy because we need less than 1/3 of a watt to hit our SPL limit at the edge of our street. However, the meat shield, us patrons and venue and party goers, we absorb sound. We absorb sound at different frequencies and at different levels of absorption, depending on how many people are in the venue. And let's assume that the venue is going to be quite full, right? And our system is in front of the actual crowd and people are enjoying the stuff, and so they're right up against the speakers. We should see, at least on the bass frequency, around about 60 hertz, we could get an absorption coefficient factor of around about 0.4. Now, absorption coefficient, guys, is quite interesting because I'll explain to you how it works quickly, right? An absorption coefficient of 0 basically means that we absorb no sound, right? An absorption coefficient of 1 you can think of as 100%, right? If we have a absorption coefficient of a factor of 1, we are absorbing 100% of all sounds. So if you think about all these Lani acoustic environments, these anechoic chambers, you know, they want to have an absorption coefficient of 1. So in other words, no reflections, no standing waves, everything gets absorbed, and you know, it'll be maximum absorption, right? So when we look at packing people into a venue and they are standing in front of a sound system, roughly at about 60 hertz, we can expect an absorption coefficient of about 0.4 when the venue is full. So knowing that we have this absorption coefficient, right, we can start to recalculate something which represents more to what you were possibly thinking, right? The 1/3 of 1 watt, 90 dBs, breaking all rules and regulations from 58 meters. Gareth, you are mad. Well, once we start to add in the patrons and the venue starts to fill out, and we look at our absorption coefficient, which becomes worse, in other words, this value goes higher, gets closer to 100%, as we go up in frequency, right? Just looking at bass, because that's the one that annoys people and pisses people off, you know, to get them to phone the popo and complain like little girls that the system is too loud. We need to recover roughly about 31 decibels. So knowing this, we can now say, okay, cool, if we're going to lose 31 decibels at 60 hertz, one is our maximum loudness at 1 meter away from our rear wall, playing into the venue with a full crowd with the absorption factor included. Well, we know that 90 dBs would have been our legal limit, but if we're absorbing roughly, guys, and I say roughly, this is a starting point, it is roughly about 31 dBs, right? Which means our speakers, or our subs at least, need to produce a minimum of 121 dBs when the venue is full, right? This is rock concert levels. This is very loud. This is a nice level, right? For people who enjoy going deaf. Okay, this is quite loud, right? With this absorption coefficient, we should, at the end of this perimeter, bring ourselves back down to 55 dBs. Ain't that cool, right? So often, you know, that you get that visual reference where what the sound engineer needed, what the DJ wanted, what the venue paid for, you know, that whole little layout. It's quite funny. We're starting to include some real factors into things, right? We're adding patrons in. They making noise. You need to overcome them, absorbing sound and so forth. So we now have some form of factor to work with, right? So we've got some real life targets that we've put into place based on the size of the venue, right? So what do we offer? Because a lot of speakers, even some of the cheaper stuff, can do 121 dBs. Well, because we do custom stuff from the ground up, we can do really cool things, and we're going to start to look at really cool things custom made from the very beginning. Now, in an ideal situation, there are fills throughout the entirety of this venue, because we know that we don't need a lot of SPL, but we need enough SPL to overcome things. Let's start looking at speakers, right? So typically speaking, the cheapest of PA speakers have a very low sensitivity of around 90 dB. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. That's what we have in South Africa, right? So if you go into a store and you don't buy a RCF, or you don't buy a JBL, or whatever the case is, and you buy a raw speaker, right? So you're trying to save money, you want to build something, and you don't want to get the worst of speakers, you don't want to get the best of speakers, you might be looking at a speaker that does about 90 dB 1 watt sensitivity, right? So it's 90 dBs 1 meter away at 1 watt, right? Typically, these cheaper speakers range anywhere between 100 to about 400 watts. So knowing that we have a rough sensitivity, knowing that we have a rough power limit, somewhere ranging between 100 to 400 watts, we can use our log calculation to kind of say, well, if I'm this loud and I have this much power available to me, what is the difference between that? Well, we get somewhere between 110 to about 116 dBs, and those speakers are at maximum volume, right? So less overall loudness. A good 15-inch speaker can easily do about 122 dBs. Some of them slightly higher, for the same amount of power. A little more, a little less, but there is a big power difference, right, or a loudness difference between a driver that is doing 95 dBs versus 90 dBs. Okay, so if we're going to use coverage and we want to use more speakers throughout the entirety of the venue to give every one of you guys the absolute coolest sound, we are going to put multiple speakers, multiple subs throughout the length of the venue to give everyone the best overall experience, right? Because as you walk in, you don't want the sound to drop. You want to have really cool sound. Right. So what does that mean? Well, technically speaking, we know that we need to get to about 121 dBs once we start to fill things up, right? Assuming that we've got a full venue, we need to recover 31 dBs. So even a speaker that is rated at 400 watts doing 90 dBs is actually falling a couple of dBs short, right? 5 dBs, which in terms of amplification and speakers is a lot. So we're going from one to many very, very quickly. Okay, and we also don't want our speaker to run at 100% volume, so we need to consider that 116 dBs being our maximum thermal capacity. We want to try and avoid this. We want to come down by at least 6 dBs, maybe even more if we're considering things like dynamic range, power compression, blah 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 blah. That's a whole different topic. Anyways, so these things fall well short of our SPL requirement that we want to achieve, and because it is a cheaper solution, we are going to look at multiple speakers that gives the venue the ability to not only zone, so have sound here, turn up, turn down, whatever the case is, turn on, turn off, and split things up, right? So we're going to look at zoning everything. So how do we start? Well, let's start as something as simple as the coupling capacity on bass at 100 hertz. Okay, so we have a 32 meter span that we need to cover, right? So if we're considering putting a speaker between whatever intervals at 32 meters, right? So we want to give everyone the same loudness and coverage. What do we need to do, right? We need to consider what is our crossover frequency, and whether you are building a top or whether you are pairing together a sub and a top. Regardless of what you're doing, there are some rules that will help you apply better practice. So typically speaking, it is advisable to be within 1/2 of a wavelength of that crossover frequency. You can bring the speakers closer together. That means they'll work better together. They'll be more phase coherent, right? And in this instance, if our venue is 32 meters and we're working at a crossover frequency of 100 hertz, we want to be speaker to speaker no further than 3.43 meters, guys, which means we need 9.3 speakers. We can simplify this and say 9 speakers, right? 9 speakers at under 3.43 meters away, right? Spanning every 3.43 meters, we're going to have another little speaker. So whether we do a sub plus a top or just a top, whatever the case is, at 100 hertz, I want that low frequency to couple, right? We don't want them to clash. Okay. This brings in some other problems. This provides some solutions, but there is no perfect solution. Whether you look at a line array, whatever the case is, there's always things that you have to tackle, right? All right. So what do we look at in terms of speakers? Okay, we need amplifiers, we need subs, we need tops. We can provide one single 15-inch to cover everything, both the low frequencies and the high frequencies. There's so many solutions, but because this is a club and because we want to give features and functionality, I'm going to start off by looking at cheaper speakers, more of using this crossover frequency across the entirety of the venue to equal out our spacing and our sound and our SPL, and we're going to hunt for them lowest brew. All right. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look at a driver from Nexus being the 18400. It's not going to win any SPL competitions. It certainly is not the most powerful speaker or the loudest speaker per watt, right? It's a 90 dB sensitivity driver, but it has a magic trick up its sleeve, right? I need to do this because it's bothering me. Three-way, there we go. Right. It has a super magic trick up its sleeve. It has the ability to play down very, very low. And remember that meter reading thing I was telling you about the A18 signal, right? We are going to exploit that. So the 18400 from Nexus, when you put it into a really big box, has the ability to hunt into the very low 30s and the very low 20s. It goes super, super low, and it can provide an audio experience beyond what you are possibly used to typically from any other big brand, because that's the way it's been designed. So the trade-off is a lower FS. It can tune lower, it just needs a bigger box. It doesn't have tons of displacement, so we're not looking at extreme power handlings. In fact, the extended low frequency variation for that cab, you're looking at about a double 18 10 cubic foot, which is pretty big, right? If you're going to hunt those super lows. And because of that, and because of its price, we can easily do a double 18 for around about 6,300 Rand, right? If we're looking at the cheapest materials, putting on lacquer grill that's customized, that, you know, whatever color paint, well, actually black paint at this price point, but that is a great start, right? 6,300 bucks is nothing to put in that real bottom in infra bass. It's actually basically a giveaway or a steal. So what can we do on top of that? Well, we can easily do a double 10, because right now I'm busy with a project for you guys to make a dual 10 line array. So we don't necessarily need to give a line array. We in fact can do a dual MTM configuration, which is basically a mid, tweeter mid, kind of like a line array, but we can turn it up vertically. And I can use a different compression driver and horn flare to try and give the best balance of high frequencies across the venue without too much comb filtering and interference and all the other good stuff. Okay, so what are we going to power it with? For this application, I would most likely use an amplifier module, which is going to be available in the market. It is a 3-way amplifier, which is going to cost you 7,100 bucks. So you could power a subwoofer and 2 tops very easy. It is, of course, a DSP amplifier module, so the amplifier will be in the actual back of the sub powering the tops. And because it is DSP processed and network capable, we have the ability, or the venue has the ability to say, right, let's turn off this, let's turn off this, let's only have that. You know what, things are starting to fill up, let's turn on these 2 speakers. Or, you know what, let's turn on this whole entire section. You know, we're having a big event. Let's connect everything together. And you can do that at a drop of a hat, because you can log into the processor and turn things up, down, on, off, EQ, the whole 9 yards, right? So that's a great solution, because everything is built into one box and it powers itself. So each section will power itself. Okay, so you can see here I've summed up a rough value of 19,400 Rand per stack, right? And I've said times 18. Now again, remember guys, I was looking at the venue from the length of the venue from this rear wall and considering the SPL limit down here. Okay, so This might seem a little bit weird, but I'm looking at stereo being left and right, even though the DJ box is over here. This again doesn't really matter too much because we can create some flexibility. But if we were to give everyone down the center of the venue, you know, the absolute best experience, well, we could do a stereo lengthways. So as you're walking through, regardless of where you are, left and right is always kind of going to be in the middle across the length of the venue. We can change this. It doesn't really matter. This is a start, right? What is the maximum we can put in there for the cheapest price? Okay, so 18 would be 9 on the one side every 3.43 meters, roughly, and 9 on the other side, and everyone's going to have some pretty good sound, which sums it up to about 350,000 Rand to fully kit out a pretty big space. 18 by 32 meters is not very small, and we can overcome the meat shield problem. Secondly, we can add in that bottom end bass that you don't really get from other systems, and because we are putting more in, we don't need that much power, including dynamic range, because we are filling up the space by using coverage and not just trying to blast everyone out the way. So again, they could also look as a venue to say, you know what, because it is a network capable, right, we can do things in phases. So from phase 1, we could say we're only going to do 4 in each block per phase, right? In other words, we could go and take phase 1 being 4 double 18s, 4 double 10s, and we can put it where things are traditionally, right? Playing next to the DJ box, playing outwards as phase 1. But because it is all network capable on off, and we have the flexibility, we can now drop, you know, there's a big difference, 4 versus 18 speakers. And if we're doing the math on this, what is our working out there? I have no idea. So 350,000 Rand, right, for 18 speakers. So we divide that by 18, right? What is wrong here? My math is not very good on this calculator. 350, 1, 2, 3, right? Divided by 18 is 19,444 Rand and 44 cents recurring, 19,400 bucks. Times by 4, if we break these up into phases, becomes 77,000 Rand, which is nothing because the venue can do things in their own stages. Right. So that is a perspective, which I'm calling perspective A, right, which can be done in phases. Phase 1 basically gives the venue a little bit more sound than what they have existingly, which also allows them to scale into their space, right? Start small, build up. It's always better than trying to mix and match. Okay, part B, and really I always like to try and go through the process of letting you, the customer, actually hear what things sound like. Okay, now when we consider doing a live demo, which is going to happen next week, so I'm going to try and upload this video tonight, so that come today already, we are looking at a week from now, the 27th of September. We are going now to the venue, and we are going to be installing 4 Type-C Paraflex 18-inch subs along with 2 double 10s, right, which is a more premium, one hell of a louder system than what we are currently offering when we're looking at phase A. But because I have already done some very basic maths, when we put the system down and the venue starts to fill up, we will have a baseline because we've done some of the mathematics already. Now I know how loud our Paraflexes are and how deep they go, and to be honest, this system most likely will absolutely overpower the venue, even if you are packed with 600, 700, 800 people. Sounds weird, it's very small, but absolutely has the ability to do that all night, every night, non-stop. Okay, so come and join us at the beach on the 27th of September, which is roughly a week away from our current time being Friday at 15 minutes past 12 in the morning. and come and have a listen to the Paraflex system that Cornelius runs around with. It's helps him get a lot of bookings. He's a great sound engineer, a great techie guy behind a desk. He loves doing live music. This is obviously not going to be live. This is going to be DJs. So we're possibly going to hear some really bad resolution music, which in a system like this can be far more noticeable because it is quite a detailed sounding product. And it's also very loud. So we're going to hear a little bit of everything as it would be on a conventional night. And we are going to take perspective B using a live demo, which hopefully you're going to come and join us and have a great experience. The second thing is we are also going to be doing our demo in October, where we're going to be packing out multiple Paraflex systems at the beach. So thank you guys very much for hosting us. You've got a really beautiful space. I got excited the moment I walked in there. Lots of potential, and we are going to be doing our demo on or in October. We're going to be packing out a variety of Paraflex products for you guys to listen to. I would have liked to have had some more products out, but right now I just don't have the time to make any more. But this is going to be the first one. I'm going to talk to you guys about what Paraflex is, how it came about, how do the enclosures work, what's the magic sauce, because that's the first thing that everyone asks us is like, guy, what is going on? These things are just crazy. So I'm going to tell you all the crazy stuff and all the magic sauce and all the secrets to getting these Paraflex products out, and possibly inviting you to come and test your very next system that you're going to buy, possibly one of your last. They do great indoors. They are really efficient, really loud, good directivity, good rear rejection. There's so many selling points. I'm not going to bore you in this video because it's already been quite long. And you're going to be able to hear everything out. And of course, we've got an historical system, one of the very first Paraflexes that was built by Andre. Yeah, it's just going to be great, guys. We're going to have some BNC cabinets, some Paraflex Type O's in some birch ply, loaded up with some BNCs. We are going to give them to you basically at cost, ladies and gentlemen, because we love you as a community so much. So if you're looking for some specials, we're going to have some ridiculous promos on the day. Lots of exciting stuff to talk about. So I really hope to see you in October, but please come and join us on the 27th of September, being this month, as we set up for a live demo day. All right. So enough boring stuff from me. Hopefully you've learned something as a venue. Things can become quite complicated. And for you guys who are doing sound rentals, it's not just a case of bringing in something that you think might work. It applies to understand the 10 log and the 20 log formula, when to use what, and what are your boundaries and confinements in the actual venue itself. Because you want to give the best possible experience under any condition and have enough sound